Rory McIlroy has parted ways with his caddie, JP Fitzgerald. And it's a strange thing to happen because the professional golfer and his caddie are like yin and yang. They have to be this tight-knit, couple that the caddie acts as like advisor on the golf course. He's also like a psychologist, all these kinds of things. So here to tell us about it is a former caddie on the European Tour, Ed Rice. How are you, Ed?
Hi, Derm. How are you?
Good. Now, are you surprised at this, and is this a big deal, or do golfers just get rid of caddies like they change their putters or balls?
Well, oddly, JP is one of the ones you'd think could have actually made this decision himself. He actually did that with Darren Clark and apparently with Ernie Els as well, that he felt the relationship wasn't working out, he wasn't benefiting, therefore he actually called it off. He broke it.
Oh.
Whether it happened in this case, I don't know, but it would be something JP would do. He's a very, very smart fella, like a very sharp operator.
And is he Irish?
He's very Irish, yeah. He won the Irish Close Championship, so he got to the final of it, but he would have been an Irish international. He would have played for Ireland.
As a non-golfer, Ed, I always find it very strange that caddies, like if you're Rory McIlroy or Tiger Woods in his prime or whatever, like you're the best golfer in the world, and you turn around to some lad who we've never really heard of, I don't know their name, like this fella JP, only heard of his name today, and he's going, all right, Rory, this is what I think you should do. I'd be like, I'm Rory McIlroy. I'm like, what are you telling me to do? What do you know?
Yeah, but that's the thing with JP. He didn't do that at all. He left Rory to his own devices. You'll see he didn't even advise him on putts, and that was one of the problems, I think, is that Rory actually needs somebody now who can direct him and give him that extra 10% he needs to actually win things. Rory hasn't won anything for a year, but then a year ago when he won, he got a 10 million bonus in the FedEx Cup, and JP got 10% of that. So if you think of what he's giving up there, like JP made, I think it was 1.89 million last year with Rory, which would have put him, I think, 87th on the tour money list ahead of all the other golfers.
And is that salary or is that percentage? Like you said, he got 10% of his winnings.
As he said, like a tsunami hit his bank account at the end of the year. That's just bonus. That's his salary is in six figures. He travels on a private plane. He has his own endorsement deals as well, because he gets to wear the stuff that Rory is sponsored by. So Nike would have him on some sort of deal as well. So he's given up basically a Goldman Sachs salary by doing this. But I suspect that he was part of it. I don't think it was acrimonious. I'd say he actually was part of the decision to break up. So it'll be interesting.
Well, presumably he'll walk into some other amazing deal with some other top golfer.
Possibly, not necessarily. I mean, it's a strange old school kind of thing. Like Dustin Johnson, who's world number one, his brother caddies for him, and Jason Day, who's world number 5 or something, his coach caddies for him. So there's no kind of set thing.
Right.
Like Jordan Spieth's caddy is the only one ever to earn over 2 million, and he talks incessantly. The two of them are babbling away at each other.
Yeah, well, you heard Jordan Spieth's caddy after the Open pretty much saying that he had to step in and act as counsellor to Jordan Spieth halfway through the round and say, look, you deserve to be here. You know, your name deserves to be on the trophy, and had to build him back up from rock bottom psychologically. And then, of course, we know he went on then to have an unbelievable finish and win the Open this year. So, I mean, the relationship is more than just a bag carrier, isn't it?
Oh, it's firstly for guys at that level, it's bodyguard as well. I mean, you're having to keep away the crowds, you're having to stop the autograph hunters, and then you have to persuade the guy that he's the best in the world, you know, every hole. Then you have to deal with his family, you have to deal with his kind of travel schedule, you've all this kind of thing. Caddies earn their keep. I mean, it's an exceptional fella that can actually do the job. But Jordan Spieth's one has to chat as well, non-stop for the whole thing, which isn't easy. Jordan wants chat, he wants to keep his mind, so you have to come up with, you have to have a good wit, like you got to be kind of a bit of sense of humour about it as well.
What's the deal with airline food, Jordan?
Yeah, but it wasn't that long ago that these guys were really treated as second-class citizens. I mean, 10 or 15 years ago, these caddies couldn't even get into the clubhouse and, had to hang around in some prefab out the back at major tournaments, even though they were on the main stage as such when they were on the course.
Well, it's still a bit like that. I mean, the big guys get dealt with well by their players, but the rest of the caddies are still out in the shed. They can't enter the clubhouse still, even now. It's still like that. And people forget, if you look at when Seve Ballesteros or any of those won the Masters, all the caddies were black. You weren't allowed to bring your own caddy to Augusta, and those guys were on about a tenner. They would just give them some little stipend, you throw maybe a few balls at the end. So, like, people forget how scummy it was back in the day.
Yeah.
So at the very top end, you're a multimillionaire. But if you go to the women's tour, like, they fire their caddies once a month. They get the turnover is huge, and that's a lot of leftover guys from the men's tour who travel on that. And then you go further down the tours, and you've just guys who are sitting at the side of a fairway, just hope to get a bag. And they're bitter. You meet those fellas, they just and they're overweight, and they're
Which category did you fall into when you were on the European tour?
If I tell the truth, I pretended I was a devout Catholic, and they had a Bible group that I went to, and your man Levinson was a very hardcore Christian, and he liked the idea of a holy man caddying for him, so I only got it for that reason.
That's great. Laughs Catholic wins again. But that was actually something I was reading about in the last couple of days, was that these Bible groups amongst the top golfers are very, very common, and in fact increasingly so, and they like to meet at events and tournaments and have all sit around. Some of the biggest names in golf in the world, most of them American, but sit around and have a Bible group.
Oh, the European Tour have a big Bible group as well. I mean, we had to sit in on it. Bernard Langer was there, a few of the other, Mark McNulty and those guys, and you'd sit round and you'd have your Bible. I had to get a Bible to make sure I didn't look out of place, and you'd sit there, and they would attribute, whatever happened to God, and thank God was out there with me and all that kind of thing. In my opinion, God has better things to be doing on a Thursday.
The opening round of the Korean Open.
But you do what you do to get the gig.
Like, what about, say, the new breed, like Beef? This guy, I don't even know his real name. I just know his nickname is Beef. Like, Johnson. He doesn't strike me as the kind of person who's going to be too worried about sitting around in the Bible group. Like, he's just a madman having the crack on the golf course. Like,
he is, but I'd say that'll change. All of them, he probably needs a steadier influence than any of them. So he'll probably have this very straight-laced caddy who gets everything, there on time and all that kind of thing. I mean, if the clubs don't turn up because you're out drinking with Beef, Beef isn't going to see the funny side of that. He's going to fire the guy straight away.
That's true.
Yeah, so he probably more than likely he's got a real steady hand on the tiller there.
Right. So just back to Rory finally, what's this going to mean for his game? Because he has been struggling over the last year, but although I think people have grossly exaggerated his decline, because last year he was winning everything, so it's he's not down and out. But what's this going to mean for his game?
It's good. It's a bit like the Premiership. You always get that bump when a new manager comes in. It'll be the same with Rory. I'd say now is the day to bet on him for the PGA. He'll have some new guy in the bag. Probably not somebody we've heard of that well. It won't be a big guy like Bones or one of these. Phil Mickelson fired his caddy recently as well, so there's a chance they'll team up. But it likely is he has a friend that he's been looking at for a while. There's another Irish guy called Ricky Elliott, who is now the richest caddy in America, and there's rumours that he might leave. He caddied for a guy called Brooks Koepka, who won the US Open, and he might leave him because they're friends from Northern Ireland, the pair of them. But I'd say Rory is a bet to win the PGA now is a great one. Dash to the bookies, because they always get the bump. The new caddy just creates this light in the Premiership.
It's a sure thing, Ed. Yeah. It's a sure thing, he says.
Yeah,
going straight from the guy who lied at the Bible group.
Ed Rice, former caddy on the European Tour, thanks so much for filling us in on that today.
No problem.
Cheers, take it easy. What do you guys think? 53102 is the text line. Dermot and Dave at todayfm.com for emails.
Yeah, you kind of forget how rich these guys are, and plus on the women's tour the prize money is fairly massive. It's not as big as the men's, but it is huge. I mean, there's there's $1 million prize pots that these caddies on the women's tour are getting as well, 10% off.
Right, well, let us know. 53102 Dermot and Dave at todayfm.com. Here's a new one from The Script. This is Rain on Today FM.
Hello, how are you doing? We are The Script, and this is our new single.
Oh, it's on
Today FM.
Woke up this morning, can't shake the thunder from last night.